the sheer horror of what happened in Las Vegas at the beginning of this week, and the I don't know the just sort of the disturbing sense that nothing's going to happen. I mean, the members of the Republican Party sort of perform this sort of kabuki theater, this kabuki dance where they basically said, well, now's not the time to politicize this. Now's not the time to talk about it because they know it's a mildly uncomfortable topic for them to talk about. And in a week, because as you mentioned, if you want to contemplate three shootings a day, or I should say 3 people shot in an event, we have one every day for the last 275 days. I think there's been about 275 events, something to that effect, mass shootings. Even by the time Monday morning rolled around, and this had happened at 1 p.m. on the East Coast, at 1 a.m. at East Coast time in Las Vegas. 30 minutes later, there was a 3-person shooting in Kansas. And so you can't keep up with these things. But, the real issue, it seems to me, and people talk about, I want to get your take on this. People talk about the money that the NRA gives, but really, that's important. But what we also see is that they have a stranglehold on Republican voters. Like the Republican Party has, people talk about identity politics on the left. The identity politics for the Republican Party are almost the full breadth of politics that exists, right? I mean, we've seen this with Donald Trump. It doesn't matter what his policy is. A lot of these people will follow him. Barack Obama took some grief for saying, they clutch their guns and their God as a way of turning away from everything. And in many respects, that's what we're seeing. And the NRA knows this, right? Because they're doing, even if you look at their ad campaigns, are all cultural signifiers. They have nothing really to do with any type of policy.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. And by the way, the NRA is one of the organizations, the quote, special interests, that pioneered this particular mode. They have, over the course, it should go back a little bit. It was the NRA used to be a sportsman's, organization, gun safety. It really wasn't any kind of particularly a political lobby. This is Wayne LaPierre. He's the guy who created this juggernaut, and he came in 1993, and he came in kind of while the zeitgeist was radicalizing the Republican Party anyway. And at the time, there were quite a few Democrats that were still NRA members and who ran as, gun rights advocates. And it should be said that, at that point, that a, quote, individual right to bear arms had not been fully established by the Supreme Court. It had never been, it wasn't actually upheld until 2008. So that's a very recent, sort of official designation of it as an unfettered individual right. That had never been true before. And, when LaPierre came in 1993 on the heels of that, that new radicalization with Newt Gingrich and Tom DeLay and that whole crowd. And in 1994, the Democrats managed to pass what they called the assault weapons ban, and that galvanized the far-right gun movement. And, it kind of piggybacked on a lot of anti-government stuff that was going on, the militia movement, Ruby Ridge, Waco, and all of that stuff. And the NRA was right in there. And one of the things they did, and LaPierre is really a brilliant politician. I don't think he gets quite enough credit for his participation in the ascension of the right wing in the last 25 years. He understood that this was all about white identity culture, and he got it from the very beginning. And he has been making those kinds of connections between the right, the enemy. In his very first speech before the NRA in 1993, declared that the greatest enemy of all Americans was the news media. He was way ahead of Donald Trump in that one. And in fact, in a lot of ways, LaPierre invented Trumpism. I mean, this kind of, violent, very, very slightly disguised racism, vigilantism, anti-government, anti-left. I mean, all of this has been building and has been part of the NRA, and it kind of waxes and wanes. When there's a Democrat in the office, it's always about, anti-government, jackbooted thugs going after your guns. When a Republican is in office, they tend to focus more on the left and how, these people are violent, and they are especially doing that right now. I mean, the NRA is after, quote, Antifa. That is the new enemy of the people.
Right.
So he is very, very, very skilled at writing the zeitgeist on the right, and he has become, I think the NRA and the Republican Party are now interchangeable. I think they actually are the same thing.
And you can track this. I mean, remember Poppy Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush quit the NRA because of Wayne LaPierre.
Yep.
And now the idea that anybody would even chastise Wayne LaPierre in the Republican Party is impossible to even conceive of. And it just gives you a sense of just how melded they have become. And their, it is this cultural outreach and their ability to move votes, and very deeply passionate votes of people who I think, don't even care about gun ownership as much as they have been convinced, as much as this has become a cultural signifier that, we are manning the ramparts against the Muslims and the gays and the feminists and the liberals and the PCers or whatever it is. It's a real problem, and we're not going to get any type of even close to what we need in terms of safe gun regulations while this dynamic is in play.